loss of your spouse through an illness, if you've been through a job layover, if you've been through a natural disaster like the hurricanes that were so devastating in Texas and in Florida, these hurricanes and in the islands, if you've been through something that is totally outside of your control, part of my own life story is that, I have health issues that were out of my control. I didn't sign up to get the cancers that I have. I didn't sign up for financial circumstances that came my way because of changes in my life because of my illness. The economy affects us. One of my struggles is that I fight with financial bondage because I got into real estate at exactly the wrong time, right before 2008, October of 2008's recession. So many of us are put into a position where we need to change where we're at in our life. I call it starting over, moving forward. It's all part of the same conversation. And I want to talk about today things that each of us can do so that we do not lose hope, so that we can encourage others to take that first step forward and do what's in their own best interest. And so I'm going to go deeper in just a moment, but let me just throw something at you that I think is critical. If you don't have time to listen to the show today and you don't have time to come back to it because your life's busy, I understand that. So let me just tell you 2 or 3 things that will encourage you to not give up and to keep moving your life forward. One is, just remember this. When you know the Lord, nothing is impossible with God, and no matter how bad you think your circumstances are, when you give it up to the Lord, when you trust in the Lord, your life can go where the Lord will take it. And so that's a theme that I'm going to come back into in a minute. I just threw that out there in case you're getting ready to get off, not listen right now. But here's the number one thing. When my wife Donna and I talked about this show today and what it is that I want to try to communicate to help people, Tony Rubleski, I started off with Donna. I said, well, Donna, when I was talking to Tony 2 nights ago, he asked me this question. He loved the Right Thinking Foundation National Online Support Network to help people when they first get out, to help find them local advocates that will be there for them so that they know that somebody cares. But Tony said to me, let me help you with this, Steve. This is good. I'm going to help you have this become a success. And he's a very, very smart, powerful person that has the wherewithal to get behind this and help make it happen. And Gary Burleson, he's there. I'm going to send people in Tennessee. When I meet an inmate that comes to me that's from Tennessee, I'm going to hook him up with Gary because he's got the best program that he's affiliated with that I've seen anywhere. And so I want to network with other people to leverage ourselves so that we can all be there trying to help others because we can't do it alone. That's one of the points I want to give you. If you're out there struggling in life and you want to change your life and move yourself forward, remember this. You cannot do it alone. You need other people. So that's what Donna and I talked about. That's one of Donna's comments. But here's what Donna said, which I think is the most specific, direct answer to this question. People cannot answer this question that I'm going to give you right now. If a person's been in prison, for example, for 9 years, and he gets out and he's done very well in prison, he's ready to come back out. But when he gets out, if he doesn't have a network, a support network, if he's alone and he gets out and he's having a hard time, he's going to be faced with a lot of things like getting a job. You got to stabilize. You've got to get a job. You've got to get an income. You've got to go that direction. But the number one thing, I know I've taken a long time to say it, but it's important, is this. If a person needs to start over, if they're a recovering alcoholic and they've been in a detox center or rehab or whatever you call it, if you're an inmate that's coming out of prison and you got to rebuild your life, if you need to start over, you must change your environment. That is the very best thing that I can tell you has come out of my thinking and my meditating and my sessions I've had with several people in the last couple of days on what can I tell people that they'll listen to? Right before I came on the show today, Chuck, my producer, I said, let me throw this at you just because I just want to go on the air in a minute, and I'd like your thoughts. I respect your opinion. And I said, imagine that you are an inmate that's been in prison for 9 years, and now you're coming out, and you are going to go to a counselor for 30 minutes, and that counselor wants to try to give you something that, turn it around. I told Gary, what if you're the counselor and an inmate comes to you that's just getting out, that doesn't have a clue what's next for him? That's the question that Tony Wrubleski asked me. He said, Steve, as you socialize what your program is, let me give you 2 questions that you need to think about. He said, he gave me the example of the 9-year returning citizen that's getting out. Put yourself in his shoes. You need to be able to answer his question, what's next? Because he doesn't know what's next. And then, what do I need to do? So if we look at what's next, what do I need to do? The best answer that I can give you is change your environment. If if an alcoholic comes out of rehab and he goes right back to the environment where he's being enabled by family and friends and nothing's any different, he still has the same lack of motivation, idle time, and other things like that, he's going to eventually go back to what he did. About 5 years ago in Brunswick Women's Correctional in Lawrenceville, Virginia, I counseled a young lady. She was about 22 years old. I've told her story on the air before. And it was a one-on-one private session, and she said that she needed help. She said she was scared to death. She was going back to a small community in a rural western part of Virginia, and there's only like 22,000 people in her community. She had been in prison for 2 years. She had a 5-year-old daughter. She was going to go live with her parents. Her boyfriend, the father of her child, was no longer in her life. He had gone to prison also. There were drug charges that they both were involved in. But when she talked to me, she said she was absolutely scared to death because when she got out of prison, she was going to be going back to the same environment that she was in before she went to prison. All of the bad influences were there. All of the people that were trying to involve her in drug trafficking and other things were there. And so she said she didn't know what to do when she went back to that environment because it was going to be hard to get a job. She didn't know how to handle her money. She didn't have, a lot of things. An environment. So I cannot stress enough that if you are a person that wants to change your life and move on from things that were bad influences that you were involved in. Hey, maybe you were the bad influence to other people, but we need to change our environment if we want to change the direction of our life. The definition of insanity, I'll just give you a paraphrase of it, is, doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. That's what insanity is. And so, number one, change your environment. And then, Donna said it as good as I've ever heard it. It all starts in the heart. Everything you want to do to have a better life is in the heart. Then the mind. And if you start off in the mind, but it's not deep in your heart, then it's probably not going to work either because you might get into things such as just thinking, taking control, thinking that you're in control, things of that nature. So I'm sort of leading into one of the thoughts that I want to give you right now. And that is that I always research Scripture to try to put a tone on the show because ultimately that's where I want people to go. Willie Butler and I did a show about 5 weeks ago called Kingdom Living, and the basic theme of that is that until you realize that this life that you have has been lent to you, that it's a gift from the Lord, and then you use it for His purposes, not your own, you're never really going to be a true success. But I want to say something to you. Here's another question that I deal with. I know a lot of people that they're not Christians. They're good people, wonderful people, and they live a good, stable life. They take care of their kids. They do good things in the community. So I want to get this clear. Hey, I am not telling you that I'm any better, that I'm not any better than anyone because I'm a Christian and I give my life to the Lord. No. I know something that maybe they don't know, but I love them just as much as anybody else. And so what I'm saying, and I told Donna that this morning right before I left to come on the air here. You know, people that are looking for stability, that are looking to do good, that don't call themselves Christians or whatever their faith is where they give it to God. There's a lot of really, really good people out there, and I'm not here to segregate and say that, well, they're not going to make it. What I'm trying to say is this. There needs to be some stable foundation, some pillars placed in everybody's life. And just to start off with what some of those basic pillars are, in case this is a jump point for you and you can't listen anymore, number one is it's best to be somewhat independent and self-sufficient and be able to take care of your own responsibilities. It's best if you're an adult to be able to have an income so that you can provide for yourself with the necessities of life, food, shelter, and clothing. That's a good starting point. If you don't want to take responsibility for yourself and you're not working, then more than likely you're going to be bouncing around and you may have some anger and irritation when other people don't do enough for you. I've got an individual in my life that I've been there for 6 years now, and I accept so much about this individual. It's a very, very difficult life that this friend of mine has, and a couple of days ago I was there to help him. He had a car problem, and he didn't know how to get in touch with his own insurance company, so he called me up, but I was late for an appointment, but I was there for him. I contacted Geico Insurance and got on a conference call because my friend, he can't read, and so I walked through the processes of making sure that the service call was dispatched to unlock his car, and he was going to run out of gas because the car was running and he was on dead empty already, and he needed money for gas, and it was a complicated situation, but I was there for my friend. Well, a couple hours later, he called me up and was more agitated because he ran out of gas again once he got his car started, and they did everything. They opened up his car, they put gas in it, and then he went about his business. But then he didn't have money for gas, and he wanted money for gas. He wanted to call the insurance company up to put more gas in his car. One thing led to another, but it was a lot of panic kind of stuff he was going through. I didn't need him to thank me for what I had done for him. That wasn't the point. But the point was that he called me up and he started accusing the bank of stealing money from his bank account. That's why I didn't have any money, et cetera, et cetera. It was a very unstable situation. But when I told him that I needed to get off the phone in order to take the call that I had an appointment with coming up, the language that he used on me was so abusive, and then he hung up. And I called him back, and I said, were you speaking to me that language? And he said, yeah, I know what you're doing. You're just trying to put me off, And I said, no, that's not true at all. And I said, don't call me. Take a break here for a while, okay? There's a lot of people out there that are not taking responsibility, that are blaming other people. And, I don't know what to say other than I've got a process that I've kind of been teaching. When you're trying to help other people, how do you really get people to listen to you and start to make the positive changes, to make those steps forward that they need to do to make their life better? Well, number one is I've learned this, and I've shared it on other shows. They got to know that you love them. They got to know that you're there for them, not for yourself. And then after you get that established, there needs to be a trust in the relationship. Then, after they get the trust, there has to be some respect, that they respect you enough to maybe listen to you. Then they make the decision to listen to you because there's something that you might be able to help them with. And then at that point, the next thing is that they have to have a desire to change. This is the critical part. You can let them know you love them. They can know it's sincere. They can trust you. They know that you're harmless, that you're not going to be there to do anything bad to them. then they start to respect you because they look at your resume and they look at your experience and you've helped